Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I just took a little break. I was doing life, I guess. Yeah. But this one is a video request from I think NZ. Your name was? Yeah. Thanks for the request. And it's such a pressing topic nowadays because you'd think it's just like an issue in the West, but it's really not. It's everywhere. And it's the fallacy that came with nationalism and the nation state as well. I've been meaning to do a more in-depth video about it, but I'll still bring up the points I want anyways. Immigration it's always there's never been a time when human beings have been stationary anywhere. Like to the point where like let's say the Homo sapiens emerged. It's just been it's like waves, different waves of migration. Like let's say the starting migration out of Africa, and then there was internal return migration. Yeah, that's what it was. Like there was periods of outward migration and then return migration over like the tens of thousands of years before like the last 10,000 years. And it's one reason why like North Africa isn't like necessarily black, right? Black in quotes. And I really hate race for the fact that it's just so, I don't know, like it tries to represent itself as something so obvious, but the more you read into it, it's really just so it's incredibly convoluted how such a simplistic and reductive system has taken such a hold on us right now. So, what exactly does it mean to immigrate? Like to leave your home country and then move to a foreign country, right? Outside of the scope of like empires and kingdoms and colonialism, what exactly is your home? Because you know even in like let's say South America, Africa, South Asia, like these, especially Africa has had numerous different empires, like numerous, and in fact they were very uh prominent within the slave trade, for example, both the Islamic slave trade and the Christian slave trade of the Europeans. Like there were always African kingdoms who were working in tandem with these other um, slave traders, basically, right? And now, like, what exactly is your home here? Because people lie to themselves that like, I love my religion or my family or you name it, but really, everything has been tailored to alienate us as far as possible. Like we can't even trust our own selves, but we have to trust something. And what can you trust in that sense? Right? Everything is foreign now. To me, everything is just fucking foreign now. It doesn't matter where I go, it's just foreign. Like human interactions are just foreign to me. Whatever this scope of human interactions are, they're just completely like alien to me. And I guess I have a more in-depth understanding of this because I've lived in different countries, first world, third world, and the different experiences. I think it's only a matter of material conditions. I really truly think the material conditions depend. Uh, they determine exactly how vastly different the experience will be. Because like living in the third world, I can tell you that there's people here who will never leave this place. There are Europeans that have been born here for like, and I'm not even talking like in the like people who, let's say, immigrated after World War II to Africa, right? To different African countries. They've stayed here. Their children have been born here. Their grandchildren have been born here, and they barely even go back to their own home countries. Like, do I consider them immigrants? I mean, technically, they're they may be, you know, like outside of and it's so difficult because outside of like the scope, people are just born where they're born. Nobody forces themselves to be born somewhere, right? People are just born where they're born, right? Now when they choose to continue birthing, that's when you have to ask why, or you ask the question why, right? What exactly are you prolonging or continuing, and what exactly are you preserving? Because we've talked about this a lot on this channel. Immigration, the biggest issues they bring up is about preserving the culture, right? Like the more upfront ones will just be like preserving the race, right? Preserving the race. But really, most people don't realize that citizenship itself is a privilege, no matter where you are, no matter what citizenship you have. Yes, I know some citizenships are like painted as evil or whatever in the media, blah blah blah. But the act of citizenship itself, like the concept, is a privilege. Living in the nation state that you're a citizen of is a privilege. Every single nation state here has citizenship laws for their privileged populations. Now you might say, yeah, where the fuck are our privileges? And I agree. But that is what citizenship is. Now, living in the third world, I've seen, like, leave alone even the Europeans. There's Africans here who are so freaking wealthy. Like, the way they live here, they could not be able to replicate that abroad. Or they could, but it's so hard to explain, right? And it's one reason why there's such a dissonance in this immigration argument or this immigration discussion, because the people, like the people, let's say in trying to escape from North Africa to go to Europe, right? This the migrant crisis that's happening up there. That is a direct cause of deposing Gaddafi and bombing the fuck out of Libya. That is a direct, like literally like when did they do it? 2014? No, sorry, 2011. They killed Gaddafi. Then like a few years later, they have one of the biggest migrant crises they've ever had from the instability. Like literally, Libya is like a slave state now. If you didn't know, by the way. Like slavery is like I'm talking about the fucking old time kind of slavery. That's what Libya is right now. It's such a disgusting situation. However bad Gaddafi was, or in whatever bad they were saying he did, this is a dramatically worse situation by far. Like I would hope everyone can see that. And it's like for me, I've never seen like I said, I've lived in Australia. It's all right. Depending on which city you are, like it's pretty chill generally, right? Most people don't go out of their way to be racist over there, right? You probably find some, but they're really passive aggressive about it. But if you check them on it, they'll like shit themselves and run away. At least in the cities where I lived. But seeing like meeting children who are born there now, like children of immigrants, they're always pulling between both sides, like, oh, I can't, I'm not accepted here, man, like all this kind of stuff. And then at the same time, it's like you're not accepted back home, but you're not accepted where you're born as well. So you're just sort of in between, and you have to find this like medium, right? And yes, parents who immigrate, like people who immigrate, technically are looking for a better life, but at the same time, I can't really make the argument that their own home countries would have provided them those opportunities. But at the same time, most of the people who immigrate okay, no. Most of the people who immigrate have the money to be able to do it, the money and the education to be able to do it. Let's start there, right? They're not all just like refugees fleeing a war. Most of the people who immigrate have that capacity. They have the capacity to find those kinds of jobs that they want in their countries, but the spaces are very limited. And then on top of that, there's incredible amounts of corruption where you won't even get the spot that you've studied so hard for because some other guy like paid off someone to get the position that you want, you have the qualifications for, and they most definitely don't, right? So they immigrate to find, better opportunities outside. And generally, I really don't have a problem. Like, if I'm speaking from my own country's terms, I don't have a problem with immigration at all, right? Because, like, what exactly makes this portion of land yours? It's how hard you can fight for it, how violent you're willing to be to keep this patch of land, right? Or these resources. And when it comes to the West, you see, this is why all of the things I talk about just intertwine, especially with religion and colonialism and all the other dynamics that fall into it. The West was like stabbing itself over and over and over, but because it was drinking enough blood, it didn't notice. When World War II ended, the corporations turned on their own citizens. Literally. The corporations were like, you know, let's say citizens like Americans or British citizens or I don't know, French citizens didn't really give a shit about colonialism, about corporatism, until, okay, yes, the Gilded Age and then the labor rights, but more so because corporations were like the major arm of colonialism, by the way. And they literally created the term banana republics, right? For like the savagery they were committing in South America. It was all well and good then, but once the corporations turned on to the people, once they found that ability to monetize and fearmonger amongst people, it was like that was game over. Because then, somewhere like Britain, which requested like their subjects in like the Caribbean specifically to immigrate after the World War to help rebuild the country. The Windrush generation, yeah, they were they were called to immigrate because like most of the able-bodied young men had either died or were like permanently crippled or traumatized, right? Most of the working age men at the time, right? So even in like places like Germany, I think France, especially with Germany, like a lot of Turkish people moved there. And this was during the Cold War as well, mind you. So like everybody's trying to guess else's game. Like there's so many other different factors going on at the same time. So while people are looking for that better life, there's others who are feeling that they've lost something, right? Like I can't remember how long ago it was. Like a survey was put out in like 60 something. I don't know. Like it was a large majority of like British people that were like lamenting the lost British Empire. And this is how you know British people are so stupid. Like you're lamenting an empire that was yours by association, right? If you're British, they'll be like, "Oh, you're a British, you're like from the mainland," but the empire belongs to the king, it belongs to the queen or the royalty or the corporations, right? You are their cannon fodder. You are like they'll let you feel like you're royalty as long as it suits them, right? And immigration to me, like I'm someone who believes just go where you're treated best. Literally, just go where you're treated the best, right? You might feel a commitment or something or an anxiety. Like if you can afford to travel, do it. If you want to go to a different place, like, if you're feeling like you want to immigrate to somewhere, go there for maybe like 1 or 2 months. Like, or like, let's say more than 2 months. At least 6 months collective of time, right? Maybe go 2 months, 1 year, 2 months the next, but like go there and actually like stay there and learn how things are there, learn what people do, what people don't do, learn the customs and everything before you decide to move. Because I can tell you, like a lot of people, especially like in Africa right now, a lot of people really aren't looking to like get on a boat and ride to Europe. Yes, there are like in conflict heavy places, they are, yes. But at the same time, like Europe itself, like literally, like you think they'd learn that maybe fascism isn't great, and like literally now there's like three or four different heads of state who are just straight up fascists, at least, right? That's like, and the average person is just so conditioned to just engage in fascism again, like they didn't see what the fuck. Like, is it that their grandfathers died without telling them these things, or their grandfathers would like, I don't know, secretly associated with like Nazis or something, so they lament their lost Fourth Reich or something, or Third Reich. I don't understand. I don't fucking understand. Like, once again, and here's the crazy thing, right? The developing world is savage, it's backward, it's all these words. But once again, we're at a stage where a world war, a nuclear world war is just right, it's right next door. And it's happening in Europe once again. Was this immigrants' fault? Was this the fault of immigrants? Right? The fucking the stonehead Nazis will still say Jews, right? They'll always say it, right? They need their eternal scapegoat. So now I'm wondering, what is the issue, right? Because now Russians, right? A lot of Russians have had to run away. I don't blame the Russians. They've never had control of their country, never. Like, that's one country where like people are just born on veteran difficulty. I don't blame the Ukrainians either for fighting, right? Now you have a situation where Russians, I was watching a video earlier about a guy explaining how Russians, even if you're Russian and you left Russia before, like, even like, let's say in the early 2000s, way before this war, like you left a long time ago and you got citizenship elsewhere, they'll still treat you like you're a Russian right now. If let's say, even if you haven't been there in like 10, 15 years, maybe you've renounced your citizenship, they'll still treat you like a Russian now. They'll still scrutinize your whether or not you can open a bank account, or they'll make you sign like a Putin is a warlord type of declaration, right? What's the point? What's the point there? I mean, like, you ran away from something, or you moved away from something, only for it to come back and find you where you are, even though you had nothing to do with it, even if you had no association to it at all. It's such a fallacy of like running, like, if you're immigrating for yourself, do it. But if you're immigrating to have kids there, then you deserve the situation you create, to be honest, right? Because it's always, oh, I gotta do this for my kids, my kids, my kids, my kids. And that's why a lot of people have kids, because they can justify stupid shit. They get to justify whatever foolish, like, idea they have of the world because it's my kids. Oh yeah, I'll kill for my kids. I die for my kids. Congrats. Like, bravo. You do all that except not bring them here, but you die for them here. But, oh man, I digress. Right? I generally think it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It can be a really good thing. Could be a really bad thing, right? The problem also is there's so much fear mongering and not enough like honest discussions about why these things continue to happen. Because I can tell you, immigration is a huge tool of like the did I say the global ruling class, capital, like capitalist? I sound like a fucking uni student, right? Immigration is a massive tool of like the global capitalist class, right? The brain drain from developing countries is so evident. It is incredibly evident. And the thing is, the systems in these developing countries encourage brain drain, because somebody can come back with a degree, like a really high qualification, maybe a master's or bachelor's, whatever, but that country doesn't have that type of education yet, right? That standard of education yet, even though they might have the bachelor's. And the person who went abroad to get it will, if their parents didn't have a business, if they didn't have like prior connections, they're not going to get anywhere with it, right? Without paying somebody. So brain drain is encouraged, but then at the same time, you go to somewhere where they're constantly scrutinizing you or underestimating you, and it's just a matter of compromises, right? It's a matter of compromises ultimately, right? There's things you'll experience there that you won't be that you won't be able to experience at your home country, and you'll just have to compromise with it, right? Trying to recreate it over there is incredibly stupid. It literally is incredibly dumb. Like, I'll turn into like a freaking Confederate fucking like bucktooth swamp dwelling. Like, get the fuck out of our country! Get the fuck out! No, like for real, like. But at the same time, I'm not really too fussed about it because, to be honest, like everywhere I've lived, you can tell there's certain things that are constant about humanity, and then you can tell about the constant justifications that people have for humanity. When I say a lot of the things, like take them as a grain of salt, take them with a pinch of salt, right? I might be serious, I might be not. I figure it out once it becomes convenient, basically. But yeah, thanks for the request. I hope you guys keep requesting more ideas. Like I'll try and note them down now because I get a lot of suggestions and then I tend to just forget them.